Hey everyone, this is Russ from Retro Game Core. So today we're going to go over Dreamcast games on the Retroid Pocket 2. But first I have a confession to make. I actually did not play any Dreamcast games up until the moment that I owned the Retroid Pocket 2 about 2 weeks ago. Just at the time when this system was out, I just didn't have any access to it. And so I've never really played any of these games. And because of that, I ended up testing out a ton of them. And so we're actually going to break this guide into two parts. We're going to spend today actually talking about how to set your system up and how to get the best gameplay performance. And then tomorrow I'll also upload a video that's just gameplay, so you can see how all these games work when you have your settings configured correctly. And they don't run perfectly. There are some hang-ups. Some games won't launch at all. Other games have really weird controls. And then some other ones just have these weird visual artifacts like you can see here, where it makes it basically unplayable. But we'll get into that tomorrow. Today I just want to talk about how you can configure the system to work perfectly. And there's many different ways to do it. So we'll start with the easiest method, and that's going to be through the Retroid Pocket operating system. So if you load it through here, there's a couple things you can do. One, you can actually just go into the settings, and if you're configured for Wi-Fi, you can enter the game market. And in here, you can sort by system, go under category, and then find the DC for Dreamcast. And you can open that up and you can browse games and then download and install them onto your system. And they'll only work in this operating system, but it's very convenient. You know, you don't have to sit there and search around for things. With some caveats, for example, a lot of these are very poorly translated, so you have to figure out which game is which. But another thing you can do, if you have your own ROMs, you can go into the settings and then external games management. You can pick out your folder, and there's a specific folder you need to put them into, so I'll leave you the text here below. But you pick out your folder, you pick out your game, and then you add it to your menu. And by doing that, you hit A, and then you go down, find the emulator, which is the Recast emulator for this particular operating system. And then it's been added to your library now. So if you go in here and you tab over until you find the Dreamcast, which is a weird thing. You can only tab over to the right to find Dreamcast. You can't tab over to the left. It's odd. But anyway, so once you have it open up, you can then find your game and you can select it to play. Now, some of these games will not work, and I think it has to do with the type of file it is. But either way, just something to keep in mind. If you try to add your own ROMs, they may not actually work. The ones that I've downloaded from the market, those have been fine. Those are probably pre-tested. But for example, I just tried to play House of the Dead 2 here, and I went through the menu, Dreamcast started up, and then I just had this blank screen, and then the app crashed. So that one didn't work. But, this one here, Soul Calibur, which I had installed from my own ROM, that one worked fine. Now, it has some visual artifacts, and that actually happens with all of them. But this is a good time to highlight some of the shortcomings of this system. One is you can see the cropping on the top is not perfect. You can see some of the text is being blocked out. Now, unfortunately, there's no way to change those settings. But on the Android side, there is an app called Flycast, which is pre-installed, and this is also a Dreamcast emulator. So you can see here I've gone in, and I'm showing you under the settings here, this is where you need to load up the location of where your ROMs are. So you go under Content Location, you hit Add, and you navigate to the place, and then same thing with Home Directory, you change that to be that same place where all of your ROMs are. Once that's set up, all the games will show up. Another thing you want to do is configure controllers. So for device A, make sure it says Sega controller. And then under physical devices, there's kind of mixed opinions about what to do here. But I found that if you leave A under PlayStation and then you put all the other ones to none under the port here, then it works just fine. Other people say make it B. I'm not really sure. There's a lot of kind of weird configuration settings in this app or this emulator. But as it stands, I found if you make PlayStation A and then you make Sega controller your device A, that works fine. And you can see here, those are the different games. Now we can go into video settings too, and there are things you can change here. So for example, you can change the frame rate as far as frame skipping and things like that. There are some navigational things and issues with this. It has to be used in mouse mode. So when you're trying to select a game, you can't just hit down on the D-pad. You actually have to go and use the mouse to try to find the spot where it is in the alphabet in order to pull up the game itself. So not very convenient. And also Flycast itself, which is what I'm running right here, has some of its own issues. So for example, here on Shenmue, I'm trying to pull up my notebook to see all of my notes. And this is a detective game, so you basically need to consult your notes, and you can only see half of them because there's this weird visual artifact. And then also you can see the main character's face is all messed up, like his eyes have these weird like polygon artifacts on them, and it's just kind of jarring and weird looking. And so that's just kind of one of the other negatives with this standalone Flycast app. A lot of people like this one and they like to tweak it and figure out the settings, but personally I have not found it to be as capable as my next option, which we'll talk about here in a second. So I think that RetroArch is the best way to play Dreamcast games, and that's what I figured out just based on my testing between the Android operating system and the apps available, as well as with the Retroid Pocket operating system. So let me show you how to set this up. You go in, you start it up, you go down to Load Core, you go all the way to the bottom and it says Download a Core. You go there, you navigate to Sega and then Dreamcast, and I'm going to go from the bottom up just because it's faster. But you go here, and there's only one Dreamcast core or emulator. So you hit that and then it downloads it. And I've already done it, so you're not seeing anything. So after you have it loaded, you can just go into Load Content and then navigate to where your games are on the SD card and then just load the games one by one. If you really want to jump into a game, that's probably your fastest way to do it, but it's not very convenient. So let me show you how you can actually add the entire Dreamcast system to RetroArch so you can play from it. So you go back to the main menu here, you navigate over to the right until you get to this plus sign, and it's Scan Directory. So you click on Scan Directory and then you go back through the parent directories till you find the specific place where you saved your games. And for me it's under SD card, games, download. Find the DC one and then hit scan this directory. I'm not going to hit it right now because I've already done it, but that will build, as you'll see right here, it'll build a list of all of your games under the Dreamcast. And so it doesn't get all of them. You can see only the ones that show up with album art are the ones they actually caught. And that's because of the file type. They will only find, I think it's GDI games. But a lot of my content, a lot of the ROMs that I own are CDI content or CDI file types. So in order to have those show up, you have to go under manual scan. So you go into manual scan, same category. So you go under manual scan, and then you find the directory. You go to the same place where all those games are, and you hit scan this directory. And under system name, you go and find Sega Dreamcast. And then under core, you go back to that Sega Dreamcast core, that Flycast core. You select that. And then you can see here, it says file extension. So here I'm putting in CDI. So that way it specifically says, every time it finds a CDI, let's treat that like a Dreamcast game. Also, you can have scan inside archives, so if you have them in zip format, that will help you and it'll actually scan them within there. And then you just hit start scan, and that'll add all the other ones that weren't found automatically. So you can see here, they don't have the box art, which isn't nice and pretty, and there's a whole way to do that. It's pretty complicated, but basically, let's just show you how to do this for now. And that's, you hit the game, you hit run, and then it starts up. Once the game starts up, you hold down start for a minute, and then the menu will pop back up, and that'll allow you to go into the options. And there's specific options you need to make sure are configured. One, you need to make sure it's 640 by 480. You need to have this MIP mapping on. That makes it a lot faster. And then finally, this DIV matching. You need to set that to auto. And then one last option I want to show is that you can enable frame skipping in this as well. You just hit right over on that one. I typically don't like to use frame skipping on any of my games. It makes them feel kind of weird, and sometimes the performance actually gets worse. But anyway, once you have that done, you can start up the game and see how it feels. And I would recommend maybe trying it without the MIP mapping and the other option, and just see how poorly it performs, and then turn it on and you'll see how great it performs. It's really night and day.
Welcome.
So I'm starting up a game here, and this game plays probably about 75% speed without those options enabled, but with the options enabled, it runs just great. It's perfect. And this is a fun little game. It's like a racquetball game. It's kind of weird, like a puzzle game too. I really enjoyed this one. Okay, and so to get back to the menu, you just hold down the start button again, and it'll pull up the RetroArch menu. And then if you like the way the settings are, you can save them. And what you do here is you go down to overrides. and then you go do save core overrides. And that basically says, hey, all the options for this game, make it the same for the rest of the core. And once that's done, then you're going to want to save it. So what you do, close out of your content if you want. It's just a habit that I have, always closing down. You go back to the far left, you go to configuration file and hit save current configuration. And there you go. So you saved the configuration to perform that way for every game in terms of the options that you have there for that Dreamcast core. So one other thing that people recommend is to go into the SD card on your Retroid Pocket 2, go into the RetroArch folder that's there, and then System, and then add the 2 BIOS files that you see there. Okay, so that's it for this video. I just wanted to really show you just down and dirty how to set up RetroArch to play Dreamcast games. And there are other options out there, and I wanted to show those to you as well. But when it comes down to it, I think that RetroArch is a much more capable system, a little bit more user-friendly, and much more compatible with a lot of the various Dreamcast games that are out there. So let me know if you have any questions in the comments below, and be sure to tune in tomorrow when I show my gameplay video, which is just going to be a couple dozen videos to show you how they play when I have them set for that current RetroArch configuration. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. Otherwise, we'll see you next time. Happy gaming.